What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode
5.
Okay, episode 5. It seems to be we're keeping track, folks. I promise you. Episode 5 today. Here with the fitness ethic. Obviously, our goal and objective is to bridge the gap between fitness and your real life. All right. Fitness provides a physical experience that exposes a person to a set of principles, disciplines, and practices that are parallel to your everyday life. With me today, with me today, I have my great co-hosts and teammates.
Mercedes.
James.
He was late again, but it's all right.
I am as fast as this thing will let me. I'm saying it legit right after Mercedes. I can't wait to do this face to face.
And for today, we have a special guest, a very special guest to our team. Some may say she is the real MVP, in the words of Kevin Durant. She holds us,
Podcast situation.
She holds us down in ways that words can't fulfill. She went to Lehigh University to play field hockey and study neuroscience and engineering. There, she earned an academic and athletic scholarship, which allowed her to complete the dual-year medical program. Today, she works as a neurophysiologist and recently completed a master's of engineering degree. All written by her, by the way. The lovely Mercedes Grubb.
Woo!
It's so necessary to tell people this is the third time we're recording it. This episode, so
That's all right.
I hope they love it. I hope you guys love it.
They say 3 times a charm, right? So third time's a charm. Words Mercedes Grubb. Who are you? High heat.
I know, this is really hot heat. Typically, I would answer this question saying that I am like a nerdy or geeky jock.
Okay.
I think that's kind of like the elementary answer to it. I've definitely matured in the last few years, and now I'm just a boss.
Okay. All right. What is a boss babe for those of us that, I guess, wouldn't consider ourselves babe?
We're bosses.
There you go.
Okay. So, boss babe. I would think that I think I'm a boss babe for many reasons.
Okay.
I'm very educated.
You are.
I excel at my day job, as well as being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Here we are today.
Right.
I think I work very hard at all of those things. I also think I am relearning to love fitness and creating a completely different relationship with it in my adulthood. But I have been, I would say, the last 3 months very proud of myself in that relationship that I'm building with it. And I think I'm doing a great job there too as well.
Okay. What do you think made that switch within the last 3 months?
Honestly, just getting kind of like fed up and sick of where I was, getting out of denial a little bit. And also, I think hitting that mature factor of no longer, or accepting the fact that I'm no longer like a Division I athlete, right? I'm pushing 30. No one's coming to ask me to play on their team anymore. But but I do have to have this body equipped to get through the rest of life. And I like to be active. I like to be outdoors. Obviously, we own a fitness brand. And it is something that's always been a part of my life. And to me, the gym is home, or athletics and being active is home. And I think for a while, I just didn't want to accept that I didn't need to like clock a 6:30 mile anymore. I didn't need to, do drills anymore. I didn't need to make a starting roster, and kind of just being okay with, my starting roster now is working out 4 times a week, making it to every class. So I just think kind of accepting where I am and then running with it, like giving the same exact effort I would give to making a starting roster to what I'm trying to do now.
Okay. Would you say the biggest hindrance of making that switch was a mental experience or a physical experience?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I'm sure James can relate to this. Being a Division I athlete and being a high-level athlete, you have so many injuries. I don't feel like my injuries got too bad until like 25-ish, where they started to like really hinder my mobility and performance and stuff. Like they were nagging and painful, but like I could gut through it. And then I think around 25 was the time where I was like, oh, these things really hurt. To the point that like I couldn't do physical movements like I could before.
Mhm.
And so I think it was a mixture of my body kind of being like, you can't do this.
Right.
My mental status being like, yes, I have to do it that way, or else I'm not an elite athlete anymore. And kind of like the acceptance factor. So it's a little bit of both, but my body gave up on me first, kind of,
Right.
and I wasn't willing to work with it. So then it was the mental that kicked in, having to be like, okay, Mercedes, reevaluate where you are, and like you can get there.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna have to go about it a different way.
Mm-hmm. Why did you choose the field that you're working? You're a neurophysiologist, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What is a neurophysiologist?
So a neurophysiologist is somebody that works with neurosurgeons and neurologists, and they basically work with devastating neurological diseases. Sometimes, or it can just be like very dramatic spine injuries. And we do something called intraoperative neuromonitoring, which is basically helps prevent and predict clinical outcomes.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we do. We kind of take a patient from the beginning of their diagnosis to the end of their surgical intervention to prevent the least amount of deficits for them to have.
Okay. Why neurophysiology?
That's kind of like a weird story. Went into medicine, went into the medical field. No one in my family is in that field. And I kind of went into it blindly in the way of, I was really smart growing up. I was kind of person that always had 4.0s, always on distinguished honor roll. And I think my family was kind of like, you have to be a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. And thought I wanted to be a lawyer, thought maybe I wanted to be an engineer. And I was like, oh, doctor sounds nice. Kind of like got to the end of the road there. And then by the time it came down to pick a specialty and what I really wanted to do, I was like, you know what? I kind of don't even have a basis or understanding of what that might be for me. And I know a lot of my peers were, all their parents were in a certain type of practice, or it was the one thing they wanted to do since they were like 5 years old. So I had a really good mentor in college that just kind of was like, you know what, why don't you try neurophysiology? It's actually a fellowship, not a residency. And so you'll get a few years there, you'll get some great clinical experience, some great patient experience. And then if you want to go back and do like a surgical residency, which is what I was thinking at the time, but it's really long. So unless you're gung ho about it, you probably shouldn't go into it. She was like, if you really want to go about that way, you'll know from this because you'll see firsthand experience. And I kind of actually really enjoyed what I was doing. I like the patient care aspect of it. I like the clinical care aspect of it. I like the research aspect of it. It's really on like the forefront of medical research. So I kind of, in a way, it kind of fell into my lap.
Oh, okay. So I always say that even in coaching clientele, in life, it's always important to have leaders, coaches, mentors, things of that sort. And I know you just made to kind of share experience and guide you along the path, right? Because they've already bumped their head numerous amounts of times within that path and in that course, and it helps make the path a little bit clearer for you to travel. The mentor that you had, how did you go about finding that mentor?
So I went to a boarding school, which was kind of a unique experience. And because of the type of school that it was, in our college, they would always reach out to people that they kind of found our mentors for us, is the way it went about. That if you went to our boarding school, we had special advisors and people, once you decided what you wanted to study, what specialty you wanted to be in, they would look for a certain professor to kind of help give these students extra help. Because while going to a boarding school does prepare you for a lot of real life, a lot of times you also are used to a lot of people kind of like pushing you along. They kind of don't let you fail. That our school realized in college, we kind of needed that same like one-on-one contact. So I, again, kind of got lucky in the way that our school had that set up already. So my neuroscience professor had been my mentor the moment I started neuroscience because of that relationship.
So did she push you out of that comfort zone for you to grow? Do you feel like, or was it a she or
It was a she?
Okay. Did that person push you out of your comfort zone? Do you feel like did they
Oh yeah,
help you to expand?
oh yeah, she was tough.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, so she was tough on me. She definitely ruled from like tough love,
Hmm.
which I wasn't used to. I was kind of used to always being like more of a teacher's pet,
Hmm.
or people were like, "Oh, Mercedes will just do the work; it's okay." And she kind of was like, "Oh, you did this work, well, you can do more." She
Hmm.
was always like, "You can do more than that. If this was easy for you, why didn't you do 2 times more than this?"
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing is when I told her, "Oh, I want to go to medical school. I want to be a doctor," and she said, "Well, why do you want to do that?" I said, "I want to help people." And she said, "You should be a teacher." And I was like, "No, I shouldn't. I should never ever. I don't want to be a teacher. That's nothing I ever wanted to do." And it's funny because like I always think back like, oh, if I could pick what I wanted to do, I'd probably be like a gym teacher right now if I could go back and do it all over.
Mercedes, the gym teacher, has a ring to it.
Yeah, or like a fashion designer.
Yeah.
One and two. We're all over the spectrum here, but
Mercedes Grubb, PE and health.
Yeah, I get it.
so she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong.
Why do you think she said that?
I think that she knew like my personality, and she said that like she was like you grasp things, you learn by teaching other people. She's like you're very helpful. She just said that to me. She was like I can't see you in the medical field. She's like beyond just because of your personality. She was like being smart like isn't something that's necessary. Like she's like it is hard. So a lot of smart people you have to be smart to kind of like survive,
Hmm.
but she was like, that isn't the only characteristic that you have to have. And she just kind of was like, she would tell me, like, for the 4 whole years, she would tell me all the time, like, you sure you want to do this? And I was like, oh my gosh, why is she so against me doing this? And she would always like, it's your personality. You're outgoing. You're a people person. She was like, you don't want to be stuck in a lab. You don't want to do all these like things that at the time part of it was like I really didn't kind of know what I was signing up for.
Right.
I thought I was signing up for Grey's Anatomy and I was signing up for something completely different.
Do you have any advice for those that may be pursuing the path of neurophysiology?
I think whatever you want to do in life, you need real world experience.
Mm.
What if you saw it in a movie? If you hear people talk about it, you need to go and do it yourself. Get that internship over the summer, over a winter break, and really figure out what it is. Because chances are it's going to be completely different than like what you think it is or how people portray it. And then my second word of advice is like, no matter what you do, because I feel like I hear young kids say this all the time. I said it, and I wish someone would have told me, is that all jobs, even if you love them, they all get repetitious and semi boring. And I think I always hear young kids, and I was like this, I would say, I just want to do something new and exciting every day. And there is nothing like even if your day is always new and exciting, that's the same thing over and over again. It's just new and exciting every day. And I think as you get to an adulthood, you kind of realize that like my job's pretty new and exciting. I never see really the same type of patients. I deal with sometimes once in a lifetime diagnoses and stuff like that. And even those at the same time, they're kind of still the same as the things we do every day. They're cool, they're neat, but it happens so frequently. And I just kind of wish that I think people hold on to that too much and then they find a career that they actually be really good at and they go, oh, but it bores me. And it's like, well, all careers kind of can get boring, after a while.
Hmm. So a little bit of that endurance, right? That
Endurance.
stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you feel the same way, James?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I think if you're constantly looking for the new and exciting in your career, you are constantly looking to get disappointed. There is beauty in the grind. There is beauty in repetition. There is beauty at becoming very, very good at doing the same thing every single day. And it doesn't get enough credit to that extent. I think that's why people chase jobs as opposed to letting things come to them.
And it definitely offers to the statement. I mean, practice makes perfect, they say, right? So if you're not consistently practicing something, how do you expect to get better and become more aware, more experienced, and more thorough in that field? So That's definitely, and like you said, the difference in your field is that you may see a different type of patient, but the whole sum of it all is kind of similar. But being prepared for those patients is in that practice of the everyday activity. And the excitement does come in very seldom spurts.
Oh yeah.
It's very seldom spurts. So there is something to say for that in the realm of continuous practice and understanding that whatever profession you choose, there will be some repetition within it, as it should be, because that's how you get better at things. It's through the experience and practice of it. What questions do you believe you're answering, or what service do you believe you're providing with your field of
I think we do take care of people.
work?
I think sometimes I see people on the worst day of their lives, and I've always prided my I always took pride in having really good bedside manner.
Okay.
And so I think sometimes just even having a nice face, a helpful hand, a warm smile can make a person's day, even if you're telling them some not the best news. So I think sometimes for me, it's not necessarily what I do, because unfortunately in neuroscience, often a lot of times by the time you have to see a neurophysiologist, your prognosis isn't that great.
Right.
What you have is incurable. It's a terminal illness. There is an end date that I can't say like, oh, I cured somebody or I saved them.
Right.
But I can say that the time that they have left, I made it more comfortable for them.
Okay. That's deep, man. That's tough. How does that rub off on you?
I think when I first started, like during my fellowship, it was hard and like I didn't realize that. I didn't make that connection when I said, okay, I'm gonna take this journey here. And then so I feel like the first 2 years were a little hard. And then after that, I just think I I understood. I think it has to do with managing your expectations, right? You come in, you're young, you're fresh, you have again misconceptions of what people told you your job would be or your life would be like. So you think you're coming in and you're saving everybody, and you're going to make a difference, and everybody's going to walk again, and everyone's going to use their hands again or have function again. And then you come to the realization where, based off of whatever the patient's diagnosis is or whatever's going, is that the best thing you can do for them is this, is X. And my new goal is just to get them to X. And that has to be good enough for you. So I mean, yeah, sometimes it's sad, you hear awful stories, you meet great people, and you wish these things weren't happening to them. But like I said, I kind of just have to stay positive and be in the mindset of, even just coming in and smiling, and rather than talking about their disease, saying, hey, how's your day? How was your daughter's wedding? How's your wife? How's your kids? How's school going? I know they went to college for the first year. Those things are makes the big difference.
Now, do you feel like you have to stay positive, or you choose to stay positive if you feel as though there's a better outcome within a positive frame of mind?
So I think I choose to stay positive for the patient, to not rub off any bad energy on them. But I have to stay positive to be able to work in the medical field. I think anybody that works in the medical field has to stay positive for themselves.
Now, what are some practices that you have to keep your, I guess, so to say, mental sanity, or to be able to kind of de-stress from these experiences and things of that sort?
Fitness. Definitely working out. I think as of recent, with everything going on with the pandemic and quarantine, being grateful. So not even thinking about positivity, but just being grateful for my circumstance, being grateful to have a job, being grateful to be healthy. Which, if you kind of switch to those simplistic things, how can you not be happy? How can you not be in a positive mindset?
Okay. Now, you said fitness is there for you. In what ways is fitness there for you?
Distressor. I have yet to master meditation or really even try it. I don't know if I possess the ability to do it, but when I work out or go on a run or go on the walk, that's actually meditation and calming for me. Everyone makes fun of me because I'm a counter. Like, I actually count my moves, where most people hate to count their moves. That's like my meditation. I get lost in the count. It's like thinking but nothing else besides doing 15 of whatever or doing 10 of whatever, and I'm very into the count of it. That's kind of like my meditation. So different things like that, getting to the point of fatigue where and having to push yourself where you can't think about anything else. You're just thinking about getting through to the next timer, through the next bell. There's something, and maybe the athlete in me, it may be something else. There's something cathartic about it that I enjoy.
Now, what's interesting there is, do you feel like it serves as a distraction or a focal stimulant? Because you're saying that you're focusing through the timer or through the repetitions, right? You're locking in. Now, or what some may say is that you're being distracted by the experience of a fitness workout.
So I would argue that's the difference between someone that's an athlete and someone that's just trying to be there, or someone that's just like passively there. An athlete hones in and they focus.
Okay.
They focus on the task at hand. They focus at the goal at the end, and they're there 100%. They're not distracted. They're not distracted. They're focused on what's going on right now in the present. I think someone that doesn't have an athletic mindset, it's distraction. They're allowing themselves to be distracted. I also think those are people though that you say you're in the gym and you say, we're doing a 30-second interval, and you have to get 15 reps in. 15 is considered the minimum. Athletes will get 15 plus. That's focus. That's determination. That's that's you taking that time to be cathartic for you. That's being in the moment. The people that lollygag and like go through the motion and get 10 and aren't even sweating. Those are distracted people, in my opinion.
I think that's a good answer. I think that the counting could be seen as a distraction, but I do, just to back you on that, in collegiate sports, you better know the count of whatever you're doing, because there is a penalty not to know. So I find myself doing the same thing. The counting of turns, the counting of steps, because it was almost like a pop quiz. So I do understand what you're saying there.
That's interesting, because the element that I tend to like to lose my focus on, and I actually have a difficult experience counting, because I hone into every element of my body performing that move. And I know that sounds strange and ridiculous, but I'm literally feeling myself from my connection feet to floor, through the function all the way up to my postural positioning, from chin to head positioning. And sometimes because I'm so in tune and focused in that element, I actually lose count and I lose my number of repetitions.
Well, I can say that like I feel like the fully matured athlete, right? The fully encapsulated person, I think does it all. Because as I was talking about, like maturing into a different type of relationship, I'm still a counter because I also think half my personality. But I will, before I would sacrifice form, different things to get to the goal and kind of just like grind it out, gut it out. Versus now, it's like, okay, it's a relationship and balance between the two. 15 may be what my trainer's telling me to do, but if I can do 12, 13, and that's my best, and I'm not breaking form, and I'm connected with my body, like that's my 15. And I'm gonna get to 15 one day, but right now I can do 13. So there's like, I feel like there's this in between stage. So I feel like it's the.
I definitely agree with you. I think that and you just actually brought to mind the element of it's the reason where it goes back to the practice, right? The repetitive action, repeating and practicing a certain movement or element of the movement, making sure you're in tune with the movement. So when that high stress comes, when this fight or flight response is activated, you're able to perform. So if you're in a competition, let's say, just for simple and layman's terms at this moment, you're in a burpee competition, right? You know what it feels like to get 15 burpees.
Giovanni would win.
You know what it feels like to get 15 burpees as opposed to getting, let's say, 5 or 10, right? And you know that your body can call on performing it the right way, the muscle memory to keep it. This is right down your alley, right? Creating neural pathways, right? So now let's transition, right? Let's bring this together. Let's bring this back. Now that we've gotten to know Mercedes, right, thoroughly, let's set it up so that we know how Mercedes and the fitness ethic ties hand in hand. right? Let's take it to the pillars of the fitness ethic into the brand. So as we said earlier, we're bridging the gap, right? We've talked about it already in some of your story, how the relationship between the physical experience and your mental practice, it goes hand in hand. So a lot of what you've learned as an athlete, you use in your field of neurophysiology, which seems outrageous, but it's true, right? So let's highlight some of those in the realm of what our pillars are. The first pillar being fitness. So I like to start the fitness pillar off with, what does fitness mean to you?
Fitness means to me, I mean, honestly, it's so hard to answer because it's kind of my whole life. It really has defined me as a person since I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And that's not an over exaggeration by any means. It's the reason even why I am in the position I am today, because if I didn't have a scholarship, I probably wouldn't be here. So, I mean, fitness to me has been everything.
Okay. So everything in what way?
I mean, from teaching me life lessons to getting me physically where I needed to be, to having some like the best times of my life, meeting some of the best people in my life.
Wow.
It's gotten me a second set of parents.
I mean, that's kind of a very complex question for me. It really is everything.
So let's get down to, let's break down the nitty gritty. What was your initial introduction to fitness or athletics? I feel like they're hand in hand. I feel like fitness and athletics are kind of the same experience to an extent.
So I think just like fitness and athletic in general, I grew up with a ton of brothers, a ton of older brothers that all played sports. One was an amazing, like outstanding soccer player, the other one lacrosse, the other one football. And I was basically the only girl in the family, and I would run around in dresses, a headband, and cleats. That was me and my mom's like compromise. And I think just from watching them, I always loved sports. They did include me, so a lot of times I was able to play them. I could bounce a basketball way before I should have been able to control my body.
You can't bounce a basketball now.
But I can shoot no one's business. And so I think that was like my first soft introduction.
Okay.
And then when I went to boarding school, my gym teacher saw me in gym class beating up on some kids in some dodgeball. And he was like, "Do you play sports?" And I was like, "No." I don't remember if I told him yes or no, but I did not organize sports at the time. And he was like, "I coach soccer, and you're on the team if you want it." And so, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, soccer, of course I'll do it." And so that's kind of my first formal introduction to it.
So it's dodgeball.
It's like dodgeball, except there's a couple different rules
that
dodgeball didn't used to have. It does now. So you can block anybody's ball. There's multiple balls on the floor, but there's no teams. You're your own man for yourself. And if you catch someone's ball, they're out. But the caveat is, if I get you and James out and someone gets me out, you guys are back in. So one person has to get everyone out, which like never happens in a classroom of elementary kids. When I stepped in there, game over. I also was like 5'2" and like 120 pounds at age 7, so like they stood no chance.
What did you call it? What's it called?
Dodgeball.
Dodge.
It's one of Papa's like made up things. He makes up games all the time. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
All right. What is your current relationship with fitness?
A new one, a completely new one that I never had before. Very humbling at times, but it's getting there. It's kind of just, how often can I move in a day and in a week, and how can I get comfortable doing a lot of functional movements, mobility, and also losing weight.
Okay. So when you said how often can you move, can you elaborate on that?
So just, walking as much as I can, not being so sedentary in my daily life, cutting out the time to do a workout X amount of times a week, that sort of thing, where I wasn't very, I would say I didn't have a regimen before. I didn't, if I had a very sedentary day, I was like, sure, I'll take an Uber home. Like I wasn't very cognizant of even like the little things, and honestly, it's because I took it for granted.
Okay.
It was because like, oh, I can run five. I can just wake up and go and run 5 miles.
Right.
Where like today, if I did that, I wouldn't be able to walk for like a week.
Right.
So just trying to work my way back up there.
Would you call that just keep moving, or?
That's exactly what I would call
Oh,
it.
okay. I just wondered.
Fine,
That's all.
moving.
I will say, James and I are gonna learn the hard way what it's like to sprint for the first time in I'd like to say years, man. It's been some years.
Yeah, that was an intense morning.
Wait, the side note, when he said that, when he came in and was like, me and the guys did wind sprints today. Yeah. You know what I thought immediately of? Remember that night that we had a coaches practice with Catherine? And G made us do those sprints in a certain amount of time.
Yes. This
insane workout. It was like sprints between everything. That's like what it brought me to, and I was like, I'm so happy I wasn't included.
Yes,
I was gonna survive that night.
It's very accurate of what happened today. Yes,
it was 10-10s, but someone coerced us to do it as 20-yard sprinters, and
yeah. Dear friend Chris, great job. Thanks.
Who will be our next guest? All right. So, with that being said, is there a specific style? I know you said you like to be functional, you like to move, you like to be able to get your body up and going, keep those joints lubricated, get the synovial fluid pumping. Obviously there's some things. Do you have any health issues that become a concern for you, or anything of that sort that cause you to have to subscribe to a certain element of fitness?
Yeah, probably my biggest issue is my knees.
Okay.
In particularly my right one.
Mm-hmm.
It has some wear and tear on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's had a surgery, and just kind of not taking care of my body has gotten it to like 2 years ago a really bad place.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would say it's probably in the best place it's ever been since I was like 18. So, just having time. I guess the biggest thing with my knee is knowing when I have good and bad days and accepting that. Before I would have a bad day and it would be a leg day, and I just wouldn't accept that it was a bad day. Mm-hmm. So I would gut through the squats and gut through the lunges, and then end up having a bad 2 weeks. Right. And now it's like, okay, it's leg day, it's a bad day. I just tell you, I'm like, oh, my knee's not doing good today, and we modify. And like, to me, modification queen. Modifications are not a bad thing. You can sweat still with modifications.
I think that the common, and I like to ask this to my clientele a lot, is it hurting or is it burning? Because there's two different experiences, right? Yeah. There's a soreness, and there's also a muscle fatigue, right? Where that obviously that lactic acid is starting to build up, the VO2 max is hit, and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can go anymore. But you can, mm-hmm. right? And then there's this hurts, something structurally is happening here. We have to go back to the drawing board and adjust. Mm-hmm. And that's the stuff you should never work through. That's the stuff you should learn to work into, right? You should learn to work into, if that makes sense. Learning how to use the joints properly and position them in ways so that it can be beneficial to you. Mm-hmm. Do you have any hereditary things that maybe make you monitor your health practices or your fitness practices?
I have a heart condition. Okay. I have an enlarged left ventricle that was found when I was in college. Okay. It's not too detrimental. It hasn't grown, which is good. It's evidently really common in young athletes. Mm-hmm. So it can either be something that is congenital, mm-hmm. or it could be something that through you basically starting athletics at a young age, mm-hmm. you overwork your cardiovascular system, and your left ventricle thickens and gets larger because it needs to overcompensate for what you're putting it through. Right. I'm not sure where mine came from. I do have to be on medication for mm-hmm. it. That's something that's not going to change. I would say when I was doing like elite intense athletics, mm-hmm. yes, I had to wear a heart monitor. I had to make sure I wasn't emptying that mm-hmm. ventricle, because part of that was not realizing, I think, too many times in athletics, we teach kids to push through pain. Right. And what we mean is push through the burn. Mm-hmm. But when you get a person or a kid that's like very like focused and headstrong and has kind of a personality similar to me, if your coach tells you to push through,
Mhm.
you push through anything. You can knock down any wall, or you at least think you can. And it took me a long time, I think, because of that. I think I had issues with that in college,
Mhm.
and then it took me a long time in adulthood to realize the difference between fatigue
Mhm.
and the burn, and like, oh no, that hurts, and that's not normal.
Right.
Because to me, it was you push through any discomfort. You're uncomfortable, you push through it, you're growing.
Right.
That was always what I was always coached and taught. And I think that was just like something that was in the 90s and like early 2000s. That was like a very like no pain, no gain type of
Right.
Yeah, I've been there.
mentality. I think we're getting a little bit away from that, which is good. But it's hard when that's like your mentality your whole life. It's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard to get away from that, and it's also hard to feel. It's in a weird way like accomplished. I used to only feel accomplished when I like reached that fatiguing point or that pain point.
Right. Now, is there a certain element of self-awareness that you have to be able to tell that difference, where you're stepping out of your comfort zone to the point where you're growing, or you're stepping out to the point where it's actually truly a health hazard?
So I think that the biggest danger zone comes into people who were lifelong athletes. I think
Mhm.
people who tend to never worked out before, it's actually the opposite.
Mhm.
They go, oh, that hurts, and it's like, nah, you just found a new muscle. You're
Right.
good. Keep
Right.
going. Like, I think that people that tend to have worked out for their whole lives, especially those younger years, those like elementary, middle school years,
Mhm.
and I think that's because you're not mature enough during that time
Right.
to understand your body.
Right.
So if someone tells you to keep going,
Mhm.
even if you really can't, you're like crawling to keep going because that's what you're told. You listen, and I think once you get there, you become so comfortable being uncomfortable
Mhm.
that your body just doesn't resonate with it until it can't work anymore.
Mhm.
I mean, now for me, the biggest thing is I don't know how to put this. It's trusting myself again, I
Mhm.
guess is the biggest thing. So there's days where you'll say, Mercedes, do this, and my instant is, oh, I can't do that anymore. And it's like, no, you know what? I have to try. I have to trust my knee. I have to trust my body. I've been working on this.
Mhm.
So for me, if anything, I've been battling with that. Like I'm getting out of that truly modified zone and getting, but I'm in that in between stage, not completely advanced,
Mhm.
a little bit more than moderate.
Mhm.
So it's like that. It's that in between of, can I do it? Can I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And sometimes I think, if anything, sometimes I tend to be too cautious now.
Right.
And then I shock myself when I do some things.
Right.
I'm like, that didn't hurt. Okay.
Right. So, one of the things that I'm seeing here is that basically you subscribe to an experience fitness-wise that is serving to you and your thorough health and well-being, right? Because
Mhm.
you have obviously a heart condition,
Mhm.
so obviously making sure your heart's healthy, keeping a good cardiovascular practice is beneficial to you. Keeping a good healthy heart that's pumping, that's getting that thing pumping and moving and exercising and strengthening itself. But also, like you said, you have some injuries that you're dealing with from your sports history.
Mhm.
So now we're talking about mobility and functionality, helping you get your body. And then not only that, you work in a sedentary field.
Yeah.
So getting your body. So there's already a makeup build of certain things. With that being said, is there a certain realm of fitness or certain style of fitness that you prescribe to that you favor?
So like truly favor for
Mhm.
me is always going to be like athletics.
Okay.
It's always going to be performance training. It's always going to be, sorry, work. I'm on call. It's always going to be playing a sport.
Mhm.
Is that the best style of training for me at this point in time? No. Functional training is probably the best for me. I do enjoy it. I don't dislike it by any means. Um, it's just I don't know if it's ever going to be my favorite.
Mhm. Okay. And do you have a specific tool that you like to use, a favorite tool?
So I don't use this enough,
Hmm.
but I do really think the TRX is a great tool. And when we do use it, I do like it. And the reasons I like it is because it is so challenging.
Hmm. What's challenging about it?
I think just having to lift your body weight and suspension
Hmm.
training is difficult. The movements feel a little unnatural. You're really truly feeling, it gives you that modification to truly lift your own body weight, which is not comfortable for most people. Isn't something that's easy. So I like that aspect of it. I like that you can get I can't do a pull-up presently, but I can get the same muscle firing and the same kind of, for me, what would be mimicking a pull-up without having to put on a rubber band and have a trainer assist me and do that. I can literally go in the gym and do it by myself.
Okay, that's awesome. So what you're saying there is that's that's essentially another practice of personal awareness, right? Self-awareness, because you're getting and developing a relationship with your own body, right? And your own body weight, moving and performing through these realms and ranges of movement. So that's awesome. So now let's move forward, right? And let's go into the next pillar of the fitness ethic. And let's cross over to community.
All right, so now we're in community, right? And one of the sayings for the fitness ethic is like iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens the other. It's the FE representation, right? It's also it's a biblical verse, but it's a true belief. I believe in when you have like wolves run in packs for a reason, right? I feel like people that are around you help sharpen you, right? And vice versa, you sharpen the people that are around you as long as you're pushing yourself to become better. That being said, what does community mean to you?
So I played team sports my whole life, and I thoroughly enjoy the aspect of the team athletic environment and like group classes.
Okay.
I think it brings out the best in people. Whether you're in a leadership role, whether you're in a following role, I think overall it's more fun.
Right.
You could be in a really funky mood and get to the gym, and if just one of your peers are in a good mood, it usually rubs off on you. So I thoroughly enjoy the community aspect of it in that way.
Okay. What are some pivotal relationships throughout your fitness and athletic experience that you've either valued the most or have shared and taught the most throughout your life?
So hands down would have to be my mama and papa.
Okay. The Alessis, shout out to the Alessis.
So they're like my second family. Papa he was that gym teacher that asked me, do you play sports? Got me into sports. And then he pretty much like kind of semi-adopted me. I started to pretty much, train with him year round by the time I was 10 years old, went on all my summer vacations with him, and then he ended up marrying a field hockey coach, ironically, which is Mama. And yeah, that was history. And they have 2 children who are like my little siblings, that I would have never had.
Do you have any lessons that stand out from your experiences with Papa or Mama that you would that you feel as though the world should learn or should know, or that the world could value up in?
Oh gosh, there's so many. There's too many.
Let's share one.
Can I share 2?
Go ahead, absolutely.
So the first one would have to be, and that's just from all of them, from both of them, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So when I was younger, I was a standout athlete, partly because I was larger than everybody, but also because I did work hard. And I think growing up with brothers, I just had like a better coordination than younger kids, because I was like practicing those things even when I didn't realize I was. And I remember going from middle school to high school, I kind of started to get like lackadaisical, like, oh, I'm so much better than everybody else. Like, I really don't have to put in work. And I remember Mama and Papa sitting me down and being like, so this summer is going to be a lot different than like all the other summers, because you're going to high school and like you're going to work harder than you ever did. Like, you're going to get up at 5 a.m. and run every day. You're going to get on the bike. You're going to lift with the wrestling boys. You're going to do this. And I kind of remember in the back of my head being like, why? Like, I'm already getting recruited by colleges. Like, I'm so much better than everybody else. Why am I doing this? And I'll always remember they were like, because talent, don't rely on your talent. Someone out there is hungrier than you and eventually, like next year, they may not be better than you, but eventually they're going to be better than you. And that happened to me before. I mean, And there's been times where I was lazy and my talent did not show up, but every time I've worked hard, my hard work has showed up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the first one and the biggest one.
What crossover do you feel that has to your everyday life?
I think just in life in general, I think there's tons of talented people out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be someone that's naturally more inclined to do something than you. That doesn't mean that you can't get there.
Right.
And I think if you always have that mindset, you'll always end up where you want to be.
Right. I definitely think too, for a lot of people, they struggle with that because the realm of working hard means like arduously doing the same practice over and over again. And it's more so too, it goes to pay in saying that if you weren't naturally inclined to a certain aspect when you were younger, and you hold yourself victim to that, and you don't ever try to pay focus detail and take the time to learn it thoroughly. I mean, it's the tortoise in the hare, right? You won't learn what you need to learn to push forward. For instance, basketball. I didn't play organized basketball as early as everyone else. So it took me longer to learn the ins and outs, the P's and the Q's, how to dot the I's and cross the T's, so to say. I learned the angles, the footwork, the proper placement, and then the athleticism caught up as the mental game got better, right? And then vice versa. Then the mental game got better and the athleticism increased. And then athleticism increased and the mental game continued to produce. And I think that that's an element because I look at it as a widespread. So I definitely agree with you there. I just think that sometimes people focus on one aspect or element of either their work field or their hobbies or their habits or their entrepreneur experience and forget that there's a very diverse aspect and a various pool of elements that you have to get better and get crafty at. So
yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, you think about like the Michael Jordan series ends tonight, right? Like the guy doesn't make his high school team.
right.
Anyone that's gone through an awkward phase of growth spurt and try to play sports, you probably had to figure it out. You know what I mean? I gained a bunch of weight but didn't get tall, and I had to become a much smarter athlete and work much harder. And then it paid off when I got to high school and I ballooned up to 6'4" and kept the same weight, right? And so, there's a lot of different aspects of that. And then in your day-to-day life in the business world, you can be very, very talented at what you do. But if you don't put the touches in, specifically in sales, nobody's going to know how talented you were because you didn't do enough touches. So, yeah, there's so many examples of that in the day-to-day.
Right.
Yeah, tactician will always beat a talented person.
Yeah.
Every time.
I think even in fitness, if you're not actually out there practicing the moves and developing a relationship with the moves and the muscles and the body, coaching it becomes almost after a certain element, it becomes very it's a foreign language. Yeah, it's a foreign language. You really don't understand it thoroughly. And I hold fast to that. I think that is something that I truly, truly hold fast to. What was the other lesson?
I think that kind of what we preach, just I didn't realize such the strong connection that fitness and athletics has to the real world. And when I was getting finished college and I wasn't like really excelling on the field anymore, and I was getting old and my body was getting old, and the passion for what I was doing just wasn't there anymore. So I was finding it harder and harder to kind of perform in an athletic realm. And I wasn't used to that. Like it was completely foreign to me. And the person that I didn't want to disappoint more than myself, I kind of already came to the conclusion like, okay, you're not going to go to where the lengths of what you thought you were going to go to in the sport in field hockey. But it was my papa and my mama. And I'll never forget, they sat me down and I was like, I remember being like so scared because usually when you got sat down, like they were very good at also like coaches on like knowing how to talk to their players and like in our house knowing how to talk to the kids. So I was always the kid that was like I said, coachable. So they would sit me down. So when they sat me down, I'd rather actually had been like yelled at because that was like, I'm not going to do good after that. But if you sit me down, whatever you're going to sit me down about was expected to be like applicated, like being applicable, like meaning a teaching moment. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to like, this is it. They're going to tell me like how disappointed they are in me and like all the years of hard work and efforts going out the window, and like, what did you do? And I remember them just kind of saying, gotta be like, if you're not happy playing, you're not happy, doing this, we coached you not to be a phenomenal athlete. We coached you to be a great human, and you are. And I think that like that was the first inkling of like, yeah, athletics and everything I learned on the field.
Right.
Hard work, mental toughness, perseverance, determination is the same person I am in a day-to-day work. Sportsmanship. I mean, even like communication, sportsmanship, the fellowship of, your team and looking out for them. Even like the softer skills, not even just all the hard, like getting at it type stuff, is who you are in day to day. And like, that's what we coached you to be. We coached you to be someone that, walks through the earth making a difference. We coached you to be like a captain in the real world, not just a captain on some field.
That's powerful. It's powerful. They taught you to be a human being, right? A human being. And one of the subcategories of a human being is an athlete to an extent, right? Because in past times, we used our bodies to bring home food, right? Or hunt and gather. In these time periods, it's to perform our daily routines and movements. Walk up and down the street, walk up and down the steps. So, or play sports for those of us that play sports or work out, and to be honest, at this point, our movement is predicating our health status.
Yeah.
To an extent. So, now with that being said, I think every man had it. Had it with Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's actually, I'm very sure there's women that are in the field that became bodybuilders that followed Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. Now, with that being said, do you have a current character? Do you have a current person that you look forward to compete with, or even an accountability partner at real live time right now?
I don't think I have like one person that I look up to really right now as like I want to be them. I think there's tons of amazing women athletes, especially there's a lot of women athletes that are playing like well into their 40s and they look phenomenal and they're in amazing shape. So I look to them in like that longevity, like more and more being able to be mobile and functioning and high performing for what that means for me has to do less about being high performing, for this year or this one instance and being high performing for the next 60 years. But there's not like one person, but I would say right now, as far as an accountability partner, my girl Jill, she kind of started with me when I those like 3 months ago when I said like, okay, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to get this knee right. I'm going to get more mobile. If it means doing all the modifications in the world, if I feel like being with G is being in a yoga session, I'm going to do it. No complaints, no nothing. If it means falling off a treadmill, I'm going to do it.
This happened.
And she was there with me, and she also was going through a knee issue. So I just think that we kind of came in at the same time together, came on at the same injury level, trying to fight our way back. And she's just a great person. She's run like over 26 marathons. She's a great endurance athlete. She has an amazing just like disposition about herself and a positive vibe. And she's always been there to cheer me on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, did you develop that relationship through the fitness classes and experiences, or?
Well, she was Giovanni's run coach for his marathon. And
well, she doesn't like to say coach.
Oh.
It wasn't official.
Okay.
Yeah.
Running, encouraging partner for his marathon training.
She was my carrot.
And that was my first time meeting her. But that's all I kind of knew about her was, she ran marathons. That G was like, she's a really cool person. And then, in the gym was like kind of, that was the first time I got to like really, really know Jill.
All right. So I feel like we got a good hold of the community. You actually shared some great lessons of how your community strengthened you and actually guided you through tough times, and also just going forward to give you the foresight to continue to build yourself and develop yourself as a human being. So it's time for the third pillar, which is empowerment.
And empowerment. So I like to think that your fitness experience empowers you, right? Because not only does it allow you to kind of get and develop a better self-awareness, right? Allows you to develop a better relationship with yourself. So, and like we say, it's not just fitness, right? It's an ethic, right? This whole concept is a mindset. It's a morality. It's a practice that you put into play to better yourself and to better your life experience. Mm-hmm. Now, the level of that is definitely up to your decision making, right? However, it does better. So, with that being said, you shared some lessons that you learned from your papa, mm-hmm. right? What are some things that you can coincide that helped you prepare for life in general from your fitness experience? Or what are some experiences that empowered you to kind of push forward as a human being? Especially now that you're sharing a duality experience now in the realm of where you're going into, not only are you an employee, as a neurophysiologist, right, in the medical field, you're pushing forward to encouraging people to take more action so that they don't end up in hospitals, right? By taking their health in their hands. And you're doing that as an entrepreneur. So now you own a business. So what are some disciplines and strategies that you may have learned along the way that empowers your overall practice of being you?
So I think one of the biggest is to never shy away from like competition or hardship. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times in life, or in our like in general, like in our careers, in entrepreneurship all the time, things get tough. Mm-hmm. And some people, face those things head on, mm-hmm. and some people tend to shy away from them. And we hear this all the time in a lot of different like self-help groups and speeches, is like, that was that one juncture for you to get where you always wanted to be kind of situation. Like, mm-hmm. And I just think through athletics and through fitness, I've learned to be very goal oriented. Okay. And also that if there's like a tough road ahead of you, you use your talents, you become tactical, and you get around it. Like, mm-hmm. you go straight through it. Like, mm-hmm. you don't shy away from those issues. You approach them head on. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's been something always at the forefront of any success I've ever had. Because that also then on the back end of that is that if you fail, you try it again. You don't just go, okay, they beat me, they got me. No, you show up the next time and you show up even better. Mm-hmm. So kind of just not being knocked down, not being able to be knocked down, which I think at the end of the day is very empowering.
Okay. So how about your everyday practice, your schedule building, your goal? Can you relate any of those practices?
So to be completely honest, the biggest thing fitness has told me is like growing up and when I was at my peak is mm-hmm. consistency is key, right. And having a schedule is key.
That was our quote of the week, folks.
Yeah. And consistent action yields consistent results.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Lines. So
I think that was it. I think that was spot on. That was it.
Yeah. So I think that, to be honest, I need to be better at this. Mm-hmm. I'm getting there. Like, I am scheduling myself. Mm-hmm. I'm holding myself accountable to X amount of workouts a day, mm-hmm. or a day. I wish X amount of workouts a week. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, if I would go back, it needs to be something that you do a little bit of something every day, mm-hmm. and you stick to that. It's mm-hmm. like no matter what, you get up and you run. Mm-hmm. Because you can always take a nap afterwards. Every Wednesday, you show up and you lift. Mm-hmm. No matter what.
And this is in relation to collegiate.
Yeah, this is like in collegiate and before collegiate too. I was very regimented, and mm-hmm. I stuck to it. And I even when Papa was not, when I wasn't living with Papa and I was at boarding school, mm-hmm. I would have fights with house parents because mm-hmm. I would be like, no, I'm gonna go running before school, mm-hmm. and they'd be like, you can't, and I'm like, no, that's when I run. Mm-hmm. So I was very regimented. I wish I and I should, and I'm going to get back to a very regimented schedule.
Now, what about your fitness and athletic experience allows you to stand tall as the Mercedes that you are today? I said, that's a thinker. So take your time with that one.
question. I think I had a great run.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of great accolades, a lot of great moments, met a lot of great people,
Mm-hmm.
and I can sit here and I can say I truly gave it my all.
Now, let me ask you a question. In your fitness journey or in your athletic journey, did you foresee yourself when you started playing sports or when you became aware enough getting a full scholarship or even getting a potential to try out for the Olympic team?
No, when I first started sports, I really liked them. I
Mhm.
enjoyed them, but I also was a pretty avid dancer and
Mhm.
got to dance for a really prestigious company when I was younger. Um, and if anything, up until about 16, I was really torn about what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And there was up until that point, I didn't realize it until I had a coach that said it to me that said, you have the type of personality and you're the type of person that if someone's willing to take the time to coach you
Mhm.
and you're interested in it, you're going to be better than the average person at it.
Mhm.
So that means you have a lot of decisions to make, which can be difficult. And at that time, I wasn't making the decisions, making a decisive decision on like, I'm really going to focus on this or I'm really going to focus on that. It was kind of like every coach was telling me, hey, Mercedes, come out and try out for my team. And I would go and I would be really good and I would get accolades. And I kind of, other than field hockey, that was the only thing I was sticking with. And so I think that, I don't know. It wasn't until I think I started really focusing on the things I like truly enjoyed. So less about the results, right? Because it wasn't when I was doing these things other than field hockey and dance, I was playing the sports because I liked the accolades and the outcomes, not because I necessarily liked or enjoyed what I was doing.
Mhm.
It was just something that came easy to me. So kind of stepping back and getting mature enough to realize the difference between the two. What do you actually love to do? And if you, let's say you lost every game or no one gave you a standing ovation or no one picked you for the leading role, would you do it? Versus do you do it because you like the cheers and the applause and the accolades you get from it and the praise?
Mhm. That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, I think that that's the tough element to performing at a high level. Is because I know personally, I can remember the days where the praise was there, and I can remember the days where the jeers were in the crowd, and I remember how each one drove me differently. Um, but I think for me personally, the things that I miss the most is camaraderie and brotherhood. I loved having teammates where you can kind of like joke around with, get serious with, experience life with. You had all those different experiences, get better with, practice with, all those different things. And you go through an emotional roller coaster, as we talked about. We've talked about this in the past, so I definitely enjoy that element. Now, what I will say is, what a lot of people think, or a lot of people ask, is they ask people to have foresight, right? And in their experience, like it's the end of your time, so on and so forth. You're sitting here. What I want you to do is take a moment, right? You're Mercedes Grubb. You're standing in a position of power right now, right? You have these great, you have two great professions right at the palm of your hand. You're a neurophysiologist. You're saving days by day. So you're literally Superman, but you're a woman, right? Like you got your glasses on. You're a super nerd by day, saving lives, right? And then you turn around and all of a sudden you come out with this super muscular suit, right? and you're coaching people to just keep moving, right? James, go ahead. You say it.
Just keep moving.
I wish I was this cool.
But with that being said, right, you got here from the experience of your fitness. If you think about it, right,
Yeah, no, 100%.
based off the relationships. Now, what I would like to do is take a second, right, and think about the fact that because you dedicated yourself to that sport, to that practice, the fact that you listened to your coaches and your leaderships when they promote your mentors, when they promoted the opportunity to think critically, when they promoted the opportunity to kind of weigh your options and kind of seek and guide and pick your way through it, right? You did all that. You used your community, you used your physical element of performance, so your fitness level, to guide you all the way up into this role, right?
Mhm.
And now you stand here in a position of power. How does that make you feel?
Good. Makes me feel accomplished. I mean, it makes me feel like all that was worth it. You know, all the sacrifice maybe not have, maybe didn't result in a medal or some big trophy or a name in some Hall of Fame somewhere yet. Who knows? And but it got me somewhere. It got me somewhere that matters. You know, it still feels like I won something. And at the end of the day, that is why you play sports, is to accomplish, is for the win.
Now, with that being said, you're saying that you have arrived to a certain state. How are you going to use those practices and that experience to push yourself forward?
I think it's the realization, right? It's the same thing in athletics, is that you're only going to be at the top for that one time, even if that one time spans 6 years. There's always going to be something new, better, greater coming at your coattails, unless you also evolve and get better and greater and keep going up. So I think that, you know, for me, it's always, I don't always want to be like immediately what's the next big thing or what's the next goal out there, but I always want to be constantly evolving and evolving for the better, and growing. So I think that that's, you know, that's the same thing. It's completely parallel. You know, you can be an all-star one season, and if you don't evolve, you're not going to be an all-star the next season. You know, if you don't learn the new moves, if you don't keep up with the times. Same thing in life. You know, you can be on top of the world in 2020, and then come 2021, if you don't work and hone your skills, it can be a completely devastating year for you. So I just think that it's just, I don't know what that looks like for me right now, you know, but that's just what it's continuously failing forward and progressing.
All right. James, I think we arrived, man. We're about to hit it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Rapid fire.
Great.
That was my machine gun.
I didn't know if it was a drum, machine gun.
It's a little bit of all of the above.
Okay.
It was confusing. It was confusing to me too.
You guys got to work on that.
We have plenty of episodes to figure it out.
Yeah, right. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Rapid fire. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
I'm as ready as I'm ever going to
Dum
be.
bum bum. All right, you gotta be short, quick, to the point.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Favorite
Yes.
color?
Pink.
Why?
Tomboy pink.
That is fast. It's almost as if you've been asked this question before.
Right.
Only the third time.
Third time's a charm. Favorite athlete or athletes?
Me.
Ooh, I was
Okay.
expect that. I didn't expect that. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh, there's so many. Tell me what it is.
So I have a funny one for you.
Okay, I was like, there's so many.
I have a funny one for you. I would say any CrossFit documentary on Netflix.
Oh, that is true. That's so true.
Because you get pumped up when you watch
I
those.
do. I should probably go to one of those events just to get it out of my system.
All right. Favorite book?
The Great Gatsby.
Why?
A lot of parallel things to life, I think, that hold true, such as like if you wait on things, they'll usually slip through your fingers.
Okay.
It was also, fun fact, I was a really bad reader, even though I was smart. So all you kids out there that can't read really well, you will one day.
Or do math. I was bad at math. But I can read really well.
And so my mom had to work with me like really, really hard on reading, like all the way through elementary, even into middle school. And so one of the things she did was make me read books like all the time. And when I would come home from boarding school, she would like shove a book into my chest and be like, "It needs to be done by break with a book report." And I'd be like, "Oh." And one of those was The Great Gatsby. And it was probably the first true literary book that I read, like high level literary book that I read at a young age, maybe like 4th or 5th grade, that I actually understood. And I remember when I got into high school being like, wow, I understood this at such a young age. So it was a mixture of, I think, it being like a pivotal moment of I'm starting to get this reading thing. It's not
Gotcha.
it's not a weakness anymore. And also liking the story, liking the morals of the story.
Spirit animal.
If Beyonce, Warren Buffett, and J-Lo had a baby, I'd be the baby.
So there was 2 Virgos there, and then J-Lo. She's her own creature.
It's because she doesn't age. I need that gene.
And Warren Buffett.
He's just brilliant.
And Beyonce.
She's the queen.
All right. Favorite quote.
It's really long, but it's the Muhammad Ali quote that says "impossible is nothing," and it's basically saying like those that believe in it are nothing. But it's long. Look it up if you don't know it. It's a really good
one. Most embarrassing moment in your fitness or athletic endeavors?
When I fell off the treadmill.
You hinted to that earlier, so I think people deserve to know what happened there.
Yeah.
So when me and G,
no, tell the true story.
I am, but I want to give precedent, like a warm up.
It's fast fire, rapid fire. Remember?
So remember when I was talking about the knee and how I came to him like, okay, I'm ready to go and I'm ready to like be humble and do whatever you tell me. He had me on a treadmill. I don't even know if I was running. I think I was like stopping running. I rolled an ankle.
It wasn't even a run.
Whatever. And it was at least on an incline. And I went down. Hard. And one of the trainers that was in the building tried to be like, that was the most graceful fall I ever seen. All I did was say, don't talk to me.
She was high heat.
I was like, don't look at me, don't talk to me. And it was the worst training session ever. I was so mad at G. I was really embarrassed though.
Greatest accomplishment.
Big 11.
Big 11. What would the Big 11 be? Just
it's basically the top 11 field hockey players. I got it when I made the not like second string or honorable mention when I was a senior. I actually made the Big 11, and it was the first time anybody from our school had made it.
Favorite activity?
Dancing.
All right. Favorite family activity or barbecue activity?
Oh, not hockey. Duh.
All right. That sums up our rapid fire, folks.
Oh, that was easy.
Well, I mean, you give anybody 3 chances. I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
Guys, you gave me a pump up. They gave me a pump up speech before this. And now they're beating me down.
Oh, good answers. They were good. The best of them all.
Remember what you said earlier, James. This is not the third time the audience heard it.
It's
true. Just me, personally.
So before we sign off, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give the team here an opportunity to kind of, James, from this entire interview, what do you think stood out to you the most?
And I was going to say this. I think that you're a very humble person in what you've done, but I see it firsthand on what you do to keep this business going, keep this business running, not just running but thriving. I think long life athletes are either on 2 sides of the coin. They either always celebrate themselves to nauseam and nobody can stand them, or they're unbelievably humble and they never talk about themselves. And you find yourself on the latter. I find myself on the latter. And I think it's important the world knows if they listen to this, they should know and understand, like, wow, she has done a lot and does do a lot.
Thank you.
I definitely like to speak towards that element where I think, and it's funny because both of you guys have this habit where you call yourselves old athletes or non-athletes now. And I think that both of you are the representation of the evolution of an athlete. If you look at Kobe Bryant, if you look at even LeBron James now, or Michael Jordan didn't look the same even physically when he was in the 99 games as opposed to when he started in 84, right? His body completely physically changed. If you talk to his trainer, they had to change and develop his body in a way that was more conducive to him to play during that time period and given his athletic abilities and capabilities during that time. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. He went through physical experiences and injuries that he had to evolve his form of play. So not only did he have to evolve physically, but he evolved mentally, becoming more aware of the game, becoming more well versed in the game. The tedious work, his regimen was very strict, very arduous. It was very repetitive, um, and I think that you guys are both representations of that. Ironically, it goes hand in hand here, James, for you. But I also like that the scape of the whole entire conversation. We talked about things that you learned as an athlete that became completely applicable to your life experience, and the fact that everything that you were experiencing led you to this point here, and everything that you've experienced is going to push you further into whatever your goals and endeavors are. And the beauty of that was that you had in a variety of ways mentors and coaches and teachers that pushed you in the direction to move forward and progress, as opposed to closed doors of opportunity to you. And I know in hindsight, looking back, there's always curiosity of what if I, went about it a different route. However, I mean, truth be told, your life experience is your life experience, and you're here now, and you're in a great position.
Yeah.
So kudos to you and to those teachers.
Thank you. I would actually like to think that. I was thinking that, when I was preparing for my third interview, that I have been blessed and extremely lucky to have had just the most amazing support system. And none of that would have been possible without them.
There we go.
And I'm going to thank all of them, because I never had anybody tell me I couldn't do it. I think a lot of face that. They face more naysayers than doers. And I don't want to lie, so I'm trying to go back, and I don't think any crazy idea I ever told my mom, any accolade I ever told mom and papa I want to achieve. I don't think anybody ever said, no, you can't do that. I think they were like, all right, we'll figure it out. These are the goals. This is the roadmap. Let's do it. So
that's beautiful. Because I know I've had a lot of people tell me I couldn't do it.
I think a lot of people do.
That's powerful. All right. And that's her crying voice, by the way.
I am. Because the thing is,
that's like the second or third time in this episode.
Getting it together and emotional. But I held it together.
She did. So now, Mercedes, you are no longer the chair's interviewee. All right. You get the beauty of signing us off as our teammate and partner. All right. So hit him with it.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you did like this, please give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe. Remember, we record this for a third time, so you better like it. You can find us on IG at @the_fitness_ethic. You can find us on Facebook at The Fitness Ethic. We also have a website, fitnessethic.com, where you can see all of our packages, different ways you can communicate with us, train with us. We'd love to see you there. And as always, we will be here every Thursday, 5 p.m. with a new podcast. Please tune in.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for listening today. We're hoping that what we intend to do is obviously bridge the gap, as I said, but also share beautiful people with the beautiful people, showing you guys that the average Joe isn't so average, and allowing you to understand that you have powers within you that are beyond your imagination, and that can push you towards any goals or endeavors that you wish to pursue. So, that being said, I'm sending all of the peace and all of the love to you guys. Be well, take care, and we hope this message finds you well. Peace.